Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Hi, hello, how are you? How has your week been? So it has come to the end of another month, but I'm not even sure that by the time that this video is going up that I've even posted my March and April wrap up. But we're gonna go ahead and do a May wrap up anyways. Now, this video, I'm going to keep it quite short on my ratings of the books just because most of these books have already been in their videos. So I don't want to bore you guys talking about the same books over and over again. This month I read 9 books and most of them were in the last 2 weeks. The first book I finished this month, I own it, but I don't have my copy because I just lent it out to a friend. But it was A Court of Mist and Fury. Oh my gosh, loved it. Everybody was right in saying that I was gonna love reading this book. And honestly, this book was the sole reason that I even reread ACOTAR in the first place, because I really was so desperate to read this book. Just because I'd heard that it was so great from so many people. And I did, I loved it. Love Resand. Like, top tier book boyfriend. I'm so excited to read ACOWAR now. Of course, I rated that one 5 stars. Then the next book that I finished was Summers at the Saint by Mary Kay Andrews. I've already talked about this in my Read With Me on Vacation video, which is coming out later, so I won't go too much into it, but this book was a little chaotic. There were so many plot lines going on at the same time, and you were following so many characters that I feel like some of the plot lines just kind of got neglected and didn't have like the resolution that you kind of thought it was building up to throughout the whole book. So that was a little bit disappointing, but it was just kind of like a little summer fun, like thriller mystery, which I did not realize when I started this book, so that was a little bit confusing. And then when I went back and like found the summary like blurb of this book that I had been given by Nat Galley, it's literally said nothing about there being like any sort of like crime mystery plotline to this book, so I was really confused as to what was going on. But it was super fun, like fun little beach read. I gave that one 3 stars. Then I finished Say You Swear by Meagan Brandy, which 5 stars. Yes, 5 stars. Like, Noah, love him. He's book husband material. But I love a good sports romance, you know? I'm such a sucker for sports romance. But I think that was my first football romance, if I'm not mistaken. I've read a lot of hockey romances, but I think that was my first football romance, which I love. Because I grew up watching a lot of football. So I feel like I kind of like understand that world a little bit more than I do hockey. Then I finished Torrent by Lisa Ton Bergren, which is the 3rd book in the River and Time series, which I love so much. And I feel like I haven't talked about this series enough on my channel for how much I love it. But that's been one of the things I've been recommending to literally everybody. Like, if you loved Magic Treehouse as a kid, like, you'll love this book because it is very much like time travel, like history vibes. And while this book might not be entirely historically accurate, that doesn't make it any less fun to read. Gave it 5 stars. But I was super disappointed when I finished this book to realize that this series was originally written as a trilogy. So the next 2 books in the series follow a different set of characters, and I was not emotionally prepared to be done with Gabriella and Marcello's story. I mean, obviously we're gonna be getting little snippets here and there of the 2 of them in the next 2 books, at least I hope, but I was not prepared for that. It really came out of nowhere. Did I say I gave that a 5 stars? That is a 5-star series for me, so far at least. I still have 2 other books. I think it's 2 more books in the series, but so far that series is a 5-star series. Then I know I literally just said I've never read a football romance before, and then I read 2 this month. But the next book that I read was 12th Night by Alexene Farol Follmuth, which is the same author that wrote Oliver Blake. Same person, but she wanted a different name attached to her YA romance. This is YA romance. But it is a retelling of the same story that She's the Man is based off of, which is apparently based off of some Shakespearean play. I think it might be called 12th Night, but I'm not entirely sure. Don't quote me on that. But it's got the same structure as She's the Man. I feel like that's a more recognizable title that people would know about. but it's like video game focused. I loved this book. It wrecked me emotionally in a way I would not expect from a rom-com, a YA rom-com, but yeah, I'm like still thinking about it, still reeling from the way that that book made me feel, in a good way. Loved it. 5 stars. I had so many 5 stars this month. Like so far we're at Akamoff, Say You Swear, Torrent, and 12th Night. That's 4 5 stars in a month. That's a lot. Then I read When in Rome by Sarah Adams, which was like super cutesy, perfect little summery read. Really was just like super fun to read. Like didn't make you think too hard. Wasn't like sad really or anything. I believed in the romance between the 2 characters. It's a very much like Hallmarky kind of book, like Hallmark movie kind of book. I mean, how many buff dudes do you know that own a pie store in real life, you know? That's like the same vibes as like you're watching that Hallmark movie where like she's got to go back to save the Christmas tree farm, and guess what? Her dad is also Santa, you know? But this book was so difficult to read because my mass-produced book was not produced correctly, and like the entire like first 50 pages of the book just like in my hand, not in the book anymore. And so I was reading it on a cruise ship and like trying so desperately to keep all of the pages in there and like make them not fly away. This is a PSA that anytime you buy books from Amazon, you should open them as soon as you get them to check to make sure that the pages are all actually attached to the book. Because by the time I went to read this and figured out that the pages weren't attached to the book, it was too late to return it and get a new copy. Then I read the Asheville Christmas Wedding, which is the 3rd book in the Carolina Christmas series. What was I doing reading a book that takes place near Christmas on my European summer vacation where I was literally on a cruise ship? I don't know. For some reason, I mean, I didn't expect this. I love fantasy books. I'm a huge fantasy reader, and I really wasn't expecting to be in such a romancy mood when I was on this trip. I had tried to start several other books before I started reading this one, and just really wasn't into them. And so I had very limited selection for the books that I was like really wanting to read, you know? Because I'd like read all of my cutesy summery romance books already by this point in the trip. So I read a Christmas book. Oh, I rated When in Rome 4 stars, by the way. This book, you know, it's like, yes, it's like a romance-y type trilogy, but also like women's fiction, because you're like following the 3 sisters as they're like navigating big problems in their lives. It's just cute. I rated that one a 3 stars just because, you know, I enjoyed reading it. Wouldn't say it was groundbreaking or anything. Then I read Ruthless Vows, which is the 2nd book in the Letters of Enchantment series. If you liked the 1st book and you're expecting the 2nd book to be really similar to the 1st one, you're gonna be disappointed. Just because this one, the 2 main characters are separated for most of the book, and it's very politics heavy. And honestly, the politics just like really aren't that interesting in this book. I think what made the 1st book so interesting was the relationship between the couple and like their letters and reading the words that they wrote to each other. And you just really don't get that much of that in this book. But also like you spend so much of the book ramping up to this big climax, and then the resolution of the story happens in the last 30 pages. And like, you feel like you didn't get to sit with what happened very long before the book was over, and neither did the characters. It like fell flat on that front. I rated it 3 stars because I wanted more from this book. Then the last book that I read this month was The Grace Here by Kim Liggett, which I thought was just gonna be like a dystopian fiction, and while it kind of, I mean, I guess it is. There's nothing specific in the book that says whether it takes place like in a potential future or if it's like an alternate reality type situation where like it's current times, but like if past events ended up differently. It's a dystopian fiction in the way that, like, a book that's meant to make you think. And, like, when I finished reading it, I felt like I had just... Hello? When I finished reading it, I felt like I had just finished reading a book for high school English class. You know, like, the resolution wasn't satisfying. If I had known before I started reading it the way that it was going to make me feel when I was finished, I probably wouldn't have picked it up, just because I read for escapism. I'm not looking to, like, broaden my horizons or become a more enlightened person. Like, I read because it's fun, and this book was going in a different direction. Like, I genuinely feel like it could be one of those books that you read in high school English class. The kind of book that leaves you with an icky feeling and makes you question, like, the current state of the world and everything. And I'm like, I just want to read, like, a fun book. Like, it's not on the same level as, like, Divergent, Hunger Games, The Maze Runner. Like, not at all. So keep that in mind if you have this on your TBR. I give this one a 3 stars. Because, like, I was enjoying it until you got to the end, which was very unsatisfying. Anyways, those are all the books that I read this month. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you're feeling up to it. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your week, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.